This video is sponsored by Terrell Hutton, who makes the invisible investable. Today on the CEO Barbecue, we're looking for copper and gold in Chile's Atacama region, together with San Lorenzo Gold. For a bullet point summary of this and all other CEO interviews, please go to resourcetalks.com and subscribe to our free weekly newsletter. The company you're about to hear from has paid us for the production of this interview, but this interview is still intended only for experienced speculators because this is venture capital and mining is a very risky industry where failure is the norm. All conversations are general and impersonal in nature, and they contain forward-looking statements. I'm not a licensed financial advisor, and my business sells content-producing services, which also makes me biased. So before continuing on, please talk to an independent investment advisor with a good long-term track record because your capital is at risk, and also visit setterplus.ca where you'll find the company's official filings. If you're not 100% sure you understand all the biases and the disclaimers that I just showed you, please go to the last section of this video and do not consume this content unless you fully understand and agree with everything said herein. That all said, I'm not doing a full company overview here for San Lorenzo because Al and I did an hour of a deep dive on the company about 6 months ago. So if you're new to the story, that video is your best starting point, really. I'm going to list it in the description of this one, so do go and watch that. In a nutshell, though, flagship project here is a large one. It's an almost 10,000 hectare land package. It's called Salvadora in Chile's, again, Atacama region. It's about 15 kilometers away from Codelco's El Salvador copper mine. So, like, is Salvadora like that mine's little girlfriend? Well, hopefully we'll come closer to answering that question at the end of the call. There's 5 targets on the project. 2 of those are being drilled right now in a phase 6 drill program that we'll talk about later today. And there are multiple discoveries have come from those targets already, pointing toward different systems. So that's something that we'll talk about as well. But the company's thinking that it's either an epithermal or a porphyry system, or multiple of those, or a combination of the two might be present on the project. So again, early days and definitely something to discuss later on. San Lorenzo recently closed a $20 million financing, but again, there is an ongoing drill program right now. So how much will they drill? How many rigs? How deep are they going to drill it? And how much will the program cost them? Those are all going to be part of the questions later on as well. Now, for some of the numbers and some of the details, San Lorenzo is listed as SLG on the TSX-V, where the average 3-month volume is about 340,000 units. The 52-week high is $3.88, and its 52-week low is just 18 cents. So quite a big increase there, with a little under 98 million shares outstanding and a $233 million market cap right now. Today, this is a $2.40 stock with a 50 and a 200-day moving average at respectively 251 and 103. Now, is the valuation getting ahead of itself, or is there more to be done here? And what will they have to drill in order to keep growing are, of course, also going to be part of the questions later on in the conversation. But for this to actually become a conversation, though, I'm going to have to shut up already. And gentlemen, I'll give you the word here. But first of all, thank you so much for sitting down with me today.
Great to be here. Thank you.
And Tom, special thanks to you for wanting to do that, actually. I didn't give you kind of a shout out there off the bat, but it looks like it's dark where you are. Maybe you're just banned to the basement where you talk about geology. Is that right?
That's right. Well, it is nighttime as well, but they barely let me out of my cave.
As they should. I'll actually kick it off. You have been out of your cave, actually, and I do want to kick it off with that because I know you don't have too much time today. So if you get tired of me, just close your laptop, pretend the Wi-Fi got cut off. Nobody's gonna. But so you were just recently on site at San Lorenzo. You looked at, I hope, at everything, and you saw a bunch of stuff. You and I were talking about that in Toronto as well. Let's start off with maybe a summary of what you saw, what you liked, what you didn't like, what you think is coming. Give me kind of the recap of your visit.
Sure. I had the honor and the privilege of going there last week with Al and Patrick Streeter from Argonaut, who put out a note on our site visit today. I'd encourage people to check that. I mean, we really did see all of the targets from porphyry, the biggest porphyry down to the smallest epithermal. Saw a lot of the historical drilling. Could definitely have looked at more core. It's such an early stage project that there's no core shed. So the core is kind of situated where it was drilled. They hide it in little gorges, I guess quebrada or something in Spanish, and then chain it off. So we saw as much core as we could. Yeah, I don't know. Where would you like to start? I mean,
Yeah, just in general, maybe you said you saw all the targets. That's actually good as well. How did you even get there? How was kind of the accessibility? Was it comfortable? What did you have to do to get to the actual targets?
It's dead easy. Other than it being a sort of 13-hour flight from Europe, it's dead easy. So you fly to Santiago and then you fly into the El Salvador mine. They fly twice a week as part of their shift change, Codelco. It's a local airline. Mm-hmm. So we flew right into the project. You can see it. You can see that on all of Al's maps. It's you step off the plane and you're looking at the Salvador project. You're looking at Cerro Blanco, and the bigger hill is probably Pueblo Muerto, Al, the dead horse.
Yeah,
Caballo Muerto thing. So you see it. You see it from the plane, and then you drive on wonderful sealed roads, new sealed roads, past massive power lines, to a town called Diego. Al has a nice little hotel set up there, importantly next to a bar or a pub or whatever the locals call them. So you can have a cerveza and some, I don't know, empanadas and other stuff like that at night. And then back from Diego back into where they're drilling is sort of 20 odd minutes on good roads. It's like a moonscape. It's unbelievable scenery. Sub Atacama, extremely dry. The geology is just sticking out of the ground. So Patrick and I, as geologists, you could just sort of what you see in the satellite image or what you see from the ute or the bucky or what do Americans call it or Canadians call it, the truck. You can map from the truck. So it's really from the infrastructure and landscape and the geology, it was a dream. It was a wonderful trip.
I do want to know more about that, but people listening should also want to know more about Tara Hutton, who doesn't only make the invisible investable, but they've made this video free of YouTube ads by sponsoring it. Tara Hutton is built for the people who are tired of going through boring PowerPoint decks and geological jargon when they're analyzing mining companies. It's a digital platform where the data, the story, and the context sit together so mining investors can use visuals to understand the why without needing a geology degree or a week off work. And if you're on the company side, it's a great way to present your project like a serious operator with everything investors keep asking for in one place. Contact them at terrahutton.io. Which target do you like the most? Just from the visit, like if you could separate it from what's being drilled today, what was your favorite target?
Yeah, guess what? My bias, the first thing that caught my attention was Cerro Blanco, and that still is the most advanced target. I've given my feedback to Terry and the geologists on the field. They found 4 or 5 mineralized structures, and they need to be drilling off those. They've done the hard work of making the discoveries, so now they need to do step out drilling off these 5 structures and work out how long they are, how wide they are. All that stuff is ahead of them. So probably still Cerro Blanco. What impressed me the most was Arco Northwest. I'm campaigning for Al to change the name to San Juan, is it, Al? The local, the San Juan's the name of the artisanal mine on the Arco main trend, just to sort of northeast of where the Arco Northwest San Juan porphyry has been drilled. So it's a lot like Arco Central, Maria Teresa. There's artisanal workings and drilling in the epithermal part of the system, and Al and Terry have stepped off, guided by IP, and targeted the porphyries on the the main centers, south and west of the high grade epithermal stuff that's already known. So San Juan, Arco Northwest is partially reported, whole 9. We got to be able to see the core there. It's clearly a porphyry. I mean, I can say that a comment I'll make generally about the projects is I went there with my skeptical hat on, trying to work out if these guys were high grading, smearing quartz veins. So what you might see in Canada or Australia is guys drilling high-grade quartz veins and then smearing the intercepts across hundreds of meters. So in what I went there looking for was for nuggety quartz veins. What I saw was no quartz. I saw sulfide veins, porphyry sulfide veins, and disseminations. So what that tells me is that there's no smearing. It's a true bulk style low, although it is very high grade for porphyry, 1 gram, half a gram to a gram, gold porphyry. So it's somehow related to El Salvador. There's going to be 5 PhDs and 20 master students studying the Salvador project to work out the connection. I guess a working hypothesis might be that the porphyry centers that we're seeing on the Salvador property are better preserved. So porphyry geologists, they like to use vectors, and what they hypothesize might be happening at El Salvador is that the gold is in the upper part of the system and it grades into copper moly. So what we're seeing is that gold part is well preserved at Cerro Blanco, at San Juan, at Maria Teresa. And you never know, there might be a copper-rich copper moly porphyry sitting down below as well. So the fault that's splitting El Salvador and El Salvador and the Salvador project is probably that main road and the gully that runs along the northern edge of the Salvador licenses. So yeah, a lot of that stuff, we're only a handful of holes, 2 handfuls of holes into this. So a lot of work to be done, a lot of drilling to be done, and then a lot of the science and all that fun stuff is ahead of us.
Tom, I was actually full on expecting you would want it to be renamed to something more Aussie, like Arky or something like that. Arco, or that would be kind of the Aussie way. But so I'm a little disappointed about that. Do you have anything to show me though? Can you pull up some pictures or something that you took on site?
Yeah, of course. I'll just share screen. This is how Cerro Blanco looks from that gully, from the structure, the east-west structure that I think is cutting through the northern end of Salvador. So that's Cerro Blanco looking back up the hill. When I look at this picture, I see all the green. That's probably argillic alteration, porphyry-related alteration. And then in the gully itself, you can see oranges and whites. This is an indication of, fluid flow. It's probably kaolinite. It's probably weathered clays after alunite or some. It's telling me that there's been a hydrothermal system at play, and the main Cerro Blanco, intensely altered and up to 1 gram mineralized area is up on top of the hill there.
Isn't there like an overburden there though? That was like 150 meters or something like that.
Yeah, I'll try and explain that. So that's that same gully there, just more of a panorama type shot. So there's multiple parts to Cerro Blanco. There's a dike swarm that's mineralized. And then there's the main porphyry center as well. Yeah, this is a funny one. The local artisanal miners had you can't. I need a photo showing where that's located. They'd somehow dug an adit in the side of the cliff face, and they must have been digging up material there. So the artisanals thought it was good enough for.
So this is like from afar. So that's like a man-sized hole.
It's a man-sized hole in the cliff face at Cerro Blanco.
Wow.
This is a creek that cuts through. The guys took great pleasure in telling me that that's a brine and there's a lot of lithium in it. So that's draining one of the Atacama brines that goes through the project. So that adit is somewhere up in this space here.
The photo you had, it kind of looked like a snake hole.
Yeah, exactly. That's a manhole. That's an adit.
Could you go back to like the previous shot where you saw the rhyolitic dikes that you talk about? What's that all about in the first place? I mean, I thought the model was kind of a designated bulk tonnage porphyry here, so I'm not following how the dikes tie, or what you saw inside, how that ties into that model, whether that's even changing the model.
No, it hasn't. It's both. So the dikes are here on that must be the eastern side of the porphyry center. Yeah, we haven't actually drilled this into this thing yet. But we're hypothesizing that it is a porphyry center. There's drill holes in IP anomalies all around us, but there's not one going through the guts of this thing just yet. And you can see the dikes cutting. They're subvertical through the hill. I'll show those in Leapfrog as well, just to give you some context. Again, intense jarosite and hematite and goethite alteration. These are different sorts of minerals that suggest that there were sulfides here that have been weathered. There's the truck or the bucky or the ute, depending on who you are, and that's the lads Terry, Al, and Streeter. So this is kind of this is the thing that I was focusing on. This is Cerro Blanco core, drilled. Help me out, Al. So March 24. No, earlier, sort of January, right? Because you released that hole at PDAC.
Yeah, it was
a year ago.
It was in January of 25. Yeah, about a year and a bit
January
ago.
25. Yeah, good. And when I'm looking at this core, I'm looking for the guys high grading on quartz veins. You can see there's no quartz there. So this could be an alkalic system. Alkalic systems they can have higher grades, and they're related to these beautiful pink rocks. These are more cyanidic. They're high potassium, high K rocks. Alkalic system, low quartz, relatively low sulfur. So that if there's copper there, it's often in bornite. So there's no possible way that the guys have been high grading nuggety things, because there are no quartz veins. So you see sulfide veins, porphyry S veins, and then disseminations into the country rock. So where you've got a network of vein, forming stringers and high density of pyrite veins, is where you're getting the best grades. There's Terry, the conceptual, the discoverer of the project, and one of Al's best mates. They've been nursing the project through over the last sort of 15 odd years. I'm sure Al will tell the story. He's explaining to me that the veins are forming a stockwork. So sometimes they're sort of traveling down the core. Remember, this is a subvertical system drilled at 60 or 70 degrees. So and the veins are darting as a stockwork through the intrusive rocks. That's probably core from Arco Northwest. That's a section through probably some of the more recent core at Arco Central. That's pyrite and chalcopyrite, and quite a high abundance of it. Maybe chalcocite here in grey. Okay, back to Cerro Blanco. This is the dike swarm on the east side of Cerro Blanco. These are carrying grades as well. So there'll be there's good little kicks. I'll show these in leapfrogs associated with these dike swarms. This is Arco Northwest or San Juan. This is well-developed sulfide veins, pyrite veins, in a heavily altered, probably diorite, maybe even cyanodiorite. The black is probably biotite, maybe tourmaline, probably almost certainly tourmaline. That's on the selvage on the edge of the vein. And then you've got chlorite, and that's the sort of green, and the pinky white would be the sort of potassic, so high temperature alteration. So that rock is completely blitzed by hydrothermal fluids. Is the takeaway. Probably also Arco Northwest. This is more of a brecciated sample, so the rocks have broken up, and you've got blebs and stringers of pyrite. The gold's attached to the pyrite. There's the lads enjoying. Feliz Retiro is the name of the artisanal mine at Arco Central. Salvadora, they call these the monuments. The regulators, SAMREC, require that you put these monuments in license number, and then the corner points of the licenses are all cemented in as well with either tubes or cement posts. So that is the Caballo Muerto. So that is a feature that you see all over the property. You can kind of get your bearings based on looking for the dead horse, and it certainly is potassic. These pink rocks are high. It's potassium. It's feldspar, K feldspar, and so that's probably also a cyanide. Another thing that's pointing me towards it being an alkalic system. These are sort of drill pads that the guys have been drilling since 21, 22. And this is Arco Northwest holes. Help me out. Is Patrick shooting hole 9 and then hole 10 scissors back on it? Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. That's 9 and 10's going back the other way.
And 10's back in the distance there. So what the takeaway, essentially the takeaway from this picture is that topography is perfect, at least in that part of Arco at San Juan, for laying out a mine, digging a big pit. You shouldn't be too concerned with the big topography. That's some of the current drilling. It's uncut core, and that would be also some of the more current drilling, although it is cut. So there's sulfides in that material too. We'll see when Al can deliver assays for that lot. And that's just a shot of the what it's like in the area. It really is a moonscape. You can see that where the guys are managing the dirt roads, they're extremely smooth and extremely nice. And then when you get off those sort of government managed dirt strips, it gets a bit rougher. But essentially just tracks that Al's team puts in with a D9 dozer to get to the drill pads. The infrastructure is wonderful.
That Al operating the dozer, you get a picture of that?
No, but he can operate. That might embarrass him. He can operate a high altitude jet. He told me last week. So I assume a D9 would be within his capabilities. So that's it. That's Caballo Muerto again.
I'd have to put my yellow jacket on, I think, Tom.
Yeah, safety first, mate. Exactly.
I don't.
Do they make you wear PPE flying a jet, I guess.
Not exactly.
Not exactly. Good. So I just want to address. Do I still have time, Antonio?
You've got plenty of time. I've got all
Yeah.
night. So just as long as you're not annoying Al, I'm all good.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah. So I just want to address your question surrounding the dikes. So that's kind of the view that I have from the valley. Yeah. And you can see the dikes cutting up subvertically through these volcanic rocks, and then the sort of porphyry center we'll see almost certainly is a porphyry center. I showed you that high K cyanitic rock with all the pyrite in it. Now, if I sort of turn that transparent, you can see how all the structures relate. First of all, to the dikes, and then to the porphyry. Now, you had a question around the depth. So that's just a plan view looking down. I'll just turn on my IP. Yeah, there they are. So what I think's happening is the boys are targeting. I do think hole 4, the most recent hole, is so far the best result. So what the lads are doing is they're targeting hitting the best part of the IP and designing the holes from surface and then vectoring in towards it. Now, as we've seen, the system is subvertical. The porphyries are intruding from the moho, from deep in the crust. And they shoot upwards, right? So almost certainly the system is going to have a strong subvertical component. It can form sills when the intrusives take advantage of the layered volcanics, but almost certainly the strongest part, and you can see it in the topography in the satellite, is subvertical. So, and in fact, you see it here. What you've got is oxidation, a couple of 100 meters or 100 meters of oxidation, and you're not seeing that 140 meters there. You're not seeing strong IP signals in the oxidation, but there's still gold there in the oxide, as proven by the 15 meters at 1.2 grams drilled in the top of hole 4. So that's a long way of saying the lads have just got to put their pads closer to the mineralized structures and they'll hit them from surface. So that's another sort of task that Patrick and I were quite keen for the guys to complete, is that, systematic trenching and sampling, rock chipping, channel sampling, whatever it's going to take across all these features to just prove up what's happening at the surface. There is a lot of work done. The guys have been rock chipping, but it's a bit ad hoc. It needs to be pulled into a database and understood, and then communicated to the market that it actually is an outcropping system.
Mm-hmm. Well, I did read in Argonaut's report that there were 6 subvertical, or at least 6 subvertical structures over a 1.7 kilometer cross section. Is that where you think the bulk tonnage would come from?
I think it's going to come from this intrusive center. Is going to be the biggest part. Fundamentally, there's already quite a few out. If you just let me turn off the topography, it's getting confusing.
That's those structures that they're talking about, is it? Because
exactly.
I count more though. I think you have more than 6.
Yeah, you might group them together. You might say that's one structure. You might say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That might be. What did Patrick have? 5 or 6? So
at least 6. Yeah.
At least that's very good wording. So there is at least 6. So what you end up so far, and these interpolations are nonsense, right? So there's no along strike control. I've just allowed Leapfrog to sort of use some geofantasy to stretch these out. But you can see from you can see from the surface that the system, that's 1.5 kilometers. That dike there where it's outcropping, that's a kilometer. And don't get me started on Ruby. So I think that's the Ruby lithocap. There's some drilling into that, some sniffs of mineralization. In fact, you can see the pads here. They also drilled through 100 meters of gravel. Al's new license that he got from Mirasol finishes just along where the gravels start. And so, we don't even know. Look, there's very clear, these are very clear alteration centers here as well. So there's just so much work to be done at Cerro Blanco, drilling systematically off the known mineralization, drilling the highest alteration part. Might not be the highest IP, might not be the strongest IP anomaly, but you can certainly see it's very, very altered. And then working out what's going on. So just the sort of lithocap part, 680 meters by 700 meters, I do expect, again, that's where that hole, I think that hole in the cliff face is sort of there, where the artisanal have gone in through that adit. I expect, there to be even a lot more mineralization, but that's the part where I think, what's Patrick's current number? He's got a couple of million ounces just based on the current drilling.
He is looking for potential up to 3 million ounces, I think. What do you think in terms of size? What do you think would be doable here?
I mean, that's just a start, right? So that's just based on what we know.
But
because it's a porphyry, sorry, Anthony, because it's a porphyry, you can bulk it out. You can bulk out these tonnages quite rapidly. These guys have drilled 12 or 1,300 meters, 12 or 13,000 meters. It's just scratching the surface.
Yeah. What could a system like that carry, though? I mean, if it's speculating forward looking and all that, but what is it that you'd be hoping for here? What's kind of your upside thesis here?
Look, it's really too early to say. I know geologists always do that, and it's fucking annoying, right? So, but just these bubbles, I'll turn them off. Just these bubbles here at Cerro Blanco, Pabuayo Muerto, Arco Central, and Arco Northwest. Just those bubbles is already 4 million ounces, right? So it's really too early, and it's too speculative, and it's all just hanging off single one drill hole in each structure. I was laughing with Al and Terry when his bloody earphones were working. He was really on fire, his hearing aids, and I was laughing with Al about, have you guys missed on this drill, on any of these drill holes yet? And Al is he had to scratch his head and think. He's like, you know what? The one hole we missed on was one that he insisted on drilling, and it drilled into a fault. I said, well, at that time it was your money, so I guess that's your prerogative. So they have an almost 100% strike rate, which is extremely unusual, and that's a function of them using the IP and surface geochemistry and drilling into mineralized structures.
I do want to point out, Tom, that when you try to say Caballo Muerto, you almost sound like Trump trying to say Puerto Rico or however he tries to say that.
No, Spanish is
I thought it would get better after the trip.
It's a disaster. Dos cerveza, por favor. Was as far as I got.
You got that from the Belgian song, actually. There's a song about that.
Is there a song like that?
It's called exactly that.
Is it?
The different podcast, actually, in and of itself. But where I was going with this when I ask you about upside is thinking about valuations. I mean, we're close to 250, $250 million. How do you justify it? Do you think the stock is getting ahead of itself? Is there more room to go?
Yeah, I mean, again, forward-looking and speculative, right? But with I kind of see this as the hard part's done. the discovery's being made. Now it's a function of being able to operate and deliver. Step out of all these wonderful structures that Terry's identified, get multiple drill rigs in there, hit it hard, and just see how big it is. So in my mind, 250 is very cheap if we can get, base case 4 million ounces, blue sky case, who knows, 10 million ounces. As the story unfolds, we'll be able to nail that number down a bit more precisely. So for me, it's still cheap. I'm still buying, and I'm still bullish and supportive.
Good. What do you think of the biggest, just before I let you go, I know it's getting late over there, so but what do you think of the biggest risks or unanswered questions? What keeps you up at night here?
Yeah, it's delivering, it's operations, it's getting Al some help, that you you had tried to agitate 6 or 12 months ago now, a debate on X and on your podcast about what comes first, management or the rocks. And I was clearly staunchly in the rocks camp. I think the tweet I made was tier 1 assets attract good people, tier 2 assets need good people. So Al's now got, I think you said 20 million, but I actually think it's 27 million bucks, probably also a couple mil already. Let's call it 30 million bucks in his kitty. He's the main shareholder. He controls most of the stock. He's done the hard work of making these discoveries and financing it. All the credit goes to Al and Terry. And now he's got enough money, and he's got a tier 1-ish, tier 1 maybe project that we can slot in a real Chad CEO to take it over and send this thing stratospheric. So let's see how Al delivers over the next 6 months.
Good. Well, thank you so much for doing this. Feel free to drop off or stick around. I do want to talk to Al about a bunch of things, and then you and I should do a catch up and an update on some of the other names that you're in sometime soon as well. But again, thanks so much for doing this.
Look forward to it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And then I'll kind of pass the ball onto your court now. How is your idea for the size of the system? And I would talk about Cerro Blanco specifically. How has it changed since the last time we spoke? Like, what do you think is doable here? Again, understanding that it is forward-looking and speculative.
Well, we agree with Tom's analysis that it's subvertical, that we need to get a little tighter to the system and drill shallower just to prove that it comes to the surface. We do have surface sampling underway along a number of those dikes and features, where, especially over where we just drilled hole 4. I think it'd be important to prove that maybe it's not deep, and that's what we're endeavoring to do with shallower holes now. What do we think? Well, we think there's an awful lot of potential there. We think there's a lot of gold there. It's a silly thing to say, but it's like a kind of a mountain of gold, for crying out loud, but of course in a porphyry type setting. So Salvador property is very blessed. That's, of course, the Cerro Blanco area that I just talked about, but the encouragement we're getting at Arco de Oro is very substantive. I've mentioned at a MIF, Metal Investor Forum presentation not too long ago, that Arco de Oro is starting to look like it's not just an epithermal. We use this phrase, swarming epithermal veins, because they do sort of go all over the place. But it appears that that system looks like there's a lot more to it than that. Mm-hmm. So what do we think about the property? We think it's very blessed. We're not doing anything at Caballo Muerto or Tres Amigos. We haven't drilled anything at Caballo South. But there's a big push now to really get active. We We've retained a couple more field geologists so that we're up to 4 now, whereas we were only at 2. And we are in discussions to add to the team both in Chile and in Canada, although the focus is more Chile based than it is in Canada. But yeah, there's something there. It's a blessed property. That's the 3rd time I've said it, so I guess I don't need to say that anymore. But we need to get after it, and we promised the likes of Tom and Patrick over at Argonaut and their team, as well as some significant shareholders that yeah, we would ramp up the program and really get after it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How much ramping up that program is going to come from the kitty that Tom was talking about? How much money do you have right now after that $20 million financing?
Oh, north of 20 million. We just finished 6 million about 3 weeks earlier. Now we are drilling, of course, and doing things, but and it's going to ramp up to 3 rigs here, within the next month or two. So that will start, spending more significant money. I mean, spending money with 1 rig and you've got $20 million in the bank, like it would take us 3 years to spend that. So things are going to ramp up significantly as we go forward here,
mm-hmm.
both towards resource delineation and doing exactly what Tom was saying, drilling off some of these great holes, and starting to figure out more and more where this thing goes. So, or those different targets go.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing a little talking here, but they were pretty keen on the fact that Caballo Muerto also kind of had a fault separating it, but there was another big system to the west of where we drilled before. And so resource delineation is very possible there as well. And the Tres Amigos feature is like 2 kilometers long, and we haven't done anything there yet. So yeah, a lot of work to do. I hope I answered your question, but I think to summarize, what do we think? We think there's a lot to go. There's a lot of potential, but we got to get at it.
Mm-hmm. And you got to get after it maybe more quickly. How many rigs do you think you're going to be running this year?
Oh, within a month to 2. Well, within a month or so, 3.
Okay.
Now we're not quite staffed up for that yet either. We're going to need to add a few more people as well, and that process is underway.
So, and I do want to talk about staff as well, but 3 rigs within a couple of months, and then kind of at the height of the program, that's still 3 rigs, or do you think you might add more?
Well, that would be getting ahead of myself. I don't see us less than 3 rigs. Everybody is very keen to start drilling this stuff off in a very accelerated manner, and so we've committed to do that. And we do like to deliver what we say we will do. So now that I'm on record saying we're going to ramp it up, we better ramp it up, or I will not, or we will not have done what we said.
And I would be back with some more annoying questions if you didn't. So you are on record saying that. How many holes have you drilled on Cerro Blanco as of today? And today's March 24th.
Well, we finished the program at Cerro Blanco. So we did 3 holes a year ago. And then in this program, we did 1 hole on the east side of Cerro on that IP anomaly that we've already announced the assays from. And then we followed it up with 3 holes on the west side of Cerro Blanco. Tom showed some of those trends in his leapfrog model a bit ago. Our focus is going to be on the east side, both north and south. We intend to do what I just mentioned, and that is drill closer to the systems to prove that it's shallower, but also along strike north and south. And we also need to acquire more IP, especially, well, not especially, I was going to say especially to the south, especially to the north and south. But now that we've done the transaction with Mirasol, our, shall we say, north-south strike, which is maybe not the exact, north-south land tenure distance is 6 kilometers as opposed to 2 before. And there's a very interesting lithocap feature there as well. There's also some very interesting surface sampling that we did on the east side there of Cerro Blanco that we believe extends down into the Mirasol lands. Their data would support that. So we've got ourselves into all we can eat when it comes to Cerro Blanco, but we've also got to get going on the other targets, but especially Arco. Arco is turning out to be very interesting. So I would point out we don't have all the assays yet. We're looking forward to the rest of 9 and 10 in the very, very near future. Can't wait to get them out. But, we're up to hole 16 has been drilled. That one having been down a little further south at Arco. And there's a lot of work, in our opinion, to be done up at what Tom would like to call San Juan. So I think in honor of him, maybe we better change the name. So, there's just, I don't know, there's so much to do.
Mm-hmm. How many meters total do you think this you're going to have drilled at the end of this program with the 3 rigs?
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Well, we enjoy the fact that most of the money we raise goes into the ground. We don't have a high overhead rate, but that's not the most important thing maybe, but I think we were accused one time about a year and a half ago that whenever we raise money, they just go and this is what was said, they just go spend it all and put it in the ground. It's true. So the intention here is to take all the money and put it into the ground. We don't have any magic things that we got to do or whatever that say, okay, well, we're out of money. So I think this is going to keep us going for a reasonable period of time. You asked me meterage. Well, our overall cost there is about $375 US, that is, of course, which is very modest compared to some of the drilling costs when you get into the high Andes of Chile and Argentina. So, you can do the division and say $20 million gets you quite a few meters at $375, while keeping in mind that the 20 million is Canadian and the 375 is USD.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we'll be active, like for a couple of years, just 3 and 4 rigs, delineating what we've found so far, and also letting Terry continue with what he really loves, and that's the exploration phase of it. So, of course, we're going to drill a little bit at Caballo Muerto and Cerro Blanco as well. I'm sorry, I misspoke. Tres Amigos as well.
Mm-hmm. But the money is going to get you through multiple seasons of drilling, essentially, because that's really what I was after here, thinking how far is that money going to take you?
Of course, I've got to caveat it by saying depends how many rigs, but I mean, clearly to the end of the year and into the middle of next year with 3 rigs going, let's say, and then let's see where it goes from there. That we do have a staffing issue that we are in the middle of plugging some holes, you might say, and making the dike less permeable. So we're working on that. Hope to have some good visibility on that within the next month or so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And again, it's just thinking about money here and what really that money is going to answer in terms of an unanswered question. Would it be enough to get out a resource? Is that within the plans?
Well, we think we're pretty close to a resource already at Arco with just a few holes. So the answer is, of course. Now, a resource at Cerro would be another issue. There's a lot more drilling that has to be done there. So, and then I want to also clarify that I earlier said that Arco is starting to look like more than just an epithermal system. So if we wanted to establish a resource in the epithermal system, there's not that much preliminary resource. 43101 has to follow and will. But to have a real good feel and comfort factor, the drilling has shown an awful lot. We're looking forward to the assays at Arco from this program.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What's the average? What's the average depth of the assays that are still to come out on Arco?
Well, we did two types of holes. So in the past, we were kind of chasing, you might say, surface expressions of epithermal systems. And when I say for surface expressions, it's pretty simple. Following artisanal workings that go for about 6 kilometers along the Arco system. And not to take anything away from Terry because he's got a lot of IP along that system as well. But, that was a fairly easy exploration tool when combined with the surface geochem that we've done. Keeping in mind, we've been working on this since 2014, so we have quite a bit of data. Now, to expand, because we became better financed here in the last little bit, we did take a bit of a shift, and that is instead of just chasing the epithermal systems that we could see at surface, Terry is now chasing some of those IP anomalies that we know about as well that, of course, require further drilling. So the IP anomaly drilling is going to kind of 400 and 500 meter depths, one hole down to 700 meters, whereas the ones that are kind of cutting across artisanal workings are only maybe 150 meters, and they're designed to test different things, of course, right? So we did drill 4 holes in this program, starting up at San Juan, in other words, the Arco Northwest extension, and heading southwards just to test that feature, those epithermal vein features. And so we've got 4 shallower holes, maybe 150 meter holes, testing that, but then the rest are testing the IP chargeability resistivity anomalies that we've been in possession of since, well, a decade.
Mm-hmm.
Terry's always wanted to drill the IP, looking for the next big porphyry, and we just didn't have the budget for it. So you got to learn to walk before you can run. And so I can tell you that our pace is definitely speeding up.
You did have one kind of a good geophysical signal target, I believe that you talked. I believe Tom might have mentioned it as well. Maria Teresa, I believe is called. That's been drilled already, right?
It has.
How deep did you drill that?
738 meters.
Okay, that's very specific. When's that coming out?
I kind of wish yesterday, but just in total candor, the turnaround times are frustrating, exasperating, I guess, to a degree. The labs haven't quite caught up with what's going on in South America with all the drilling, given what gold and copper and silver and everything did. So, yeah, we're finding a 2 month turnaround time now,
Mm-hmm.
which is, I know, is ridiculous, but it is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. You also talk about a 1.5 kilometer strike length. How much of that do you think you're going to be able to drill at the end of this program, or how much are you going to be stepping out? Maybe put it differently. What's the difference going to be between the 2 furthest holes from each other?
Sorry, are we talking Arco de Oro or Cerro Blanco? I'm sorry.
Oh, so I'm actually jumping around, and that's my bad. No, I'm thinking ahead here. But so yes, Cerro Blanco. I'm thinking about Cerro Blanco, strike length 1.5 kilometers. How much of that are we going to see drilled this year?
The discussion right now is to start stepping out 100 meters at a time, but not just with one hole, but probably fences, so we can prove shallow, mid depth, and a bit deeper. There's a big push to go deeper as well to see where the system comes from, so there'll be a little bit of that as well. I mean, we would like to have at least 1.5 kilometers of strike at Cerro Blanco drilled this year, or with these funds at least. But keep in mind that there are different structures that have to be tested, and they have to be tested along strike as well. We right now think that the east side is a little stronger than on the west side, but there's some very interesting things there too. I think the market thinks it's lesser. It may be, but it not necessarily. But I'm not going to wax philosophical on that right now. I'll just tell you that we're going to focus on north, east, and southwest extensions of that larger system that we tested with hole 4 of 25 that was drilled a couple of months, 3 months ago now.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're going to go north and south. We just immediately to the north is our strongest IP anomaly that hasn't been drilled. We'll be building a road into that, of course, and then continuing north on there. But then we need to, like I said earlier, get more IP to the south. We fully expect to be following that system to the south, especially now that we have the Mirasol lands tied up.
Well, Tom thinks you should do a lot more RC, I believe is what he mentioned when you and I were in Toronto during his presentation. What do you think about that? Is that something you're going to do?
Well, we would, except there's not many RC rigs in Chile. It's dominated by diamond drilling. I mean, it can be converted, but it's not the most common practice, although it for sure happens, for sure. So a decision on that hasn't been made, but I will tell you that Terry, when it comes to resource delineation, we all know that RC tells a lot, but Terry loves to see the rock. So I think that for a little while yet, we're going to continue with diamond, and maybe the infill will be RC, to get to 43-101 compliant. And we are, to a degree, still in an exploration phase. Tom was kind to say that we've made discoveries and we got to drill them out. Well, yes, but there's way more to go, and so we're looking forward to more drilling and getting right into the guts of the system and see what's going on there. Mm-hmm. I mean, this came from somewhere, right? So and there's a lot of strike. What's interesting as well is there's 420 meters of elevation difference between where we drilled in Cerro Blanco and down at the river valley where you see those alteration patterns coming down. So clearly we're going to have to drill a little deeper as well. I'm talking TVD, right? So, yeah, it's exciting.
And then again, jumping around a little bit, but then back to Arco de Oro, how many holes are completed now to date? How many assays are outstanding?
We'll have to do a quick count, but there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I think there's 9. It's either 9 or 10 holes, I'm sorry, that are still awaiting assays.
So you're going to have kind of news release cadence here for this program. I think you mentioned before, but you expect them every kind of fortnight or so. Is that still your expectation with the labs and everything?
Well, now we're kind of in the, okay, we've waited the month and a half, kind of like they've been in there for a while. So I would expect that we're going to start seeing stuff. But I'm very shocked. I shouldn't say shocked, surprised that we don't have the balance of hole 9 and 10 back yet, but we don't. But that's, within days, hopefully. I've said that before, though, so I better be careful. Yeah, and then, see what happened along the system, the epithermal vein system, and then see what's going on around Maria Teresa as well. So, and of course, we're about to kick off more drilling offsetting hole 9 and 10 in the very near future. So, we don't have the assay results, but we sure have seen the core. So, what to say about that? Not much more than that, obviously, but there's so many places we can go.
I like how you dance around those topics, by the way. I think you deserve praise for that. So hole 9 is the one you released the partial results on, is that right?
Yeah, from 233 meters down. The story, and it's not a story, it's the facts. Hole 10 and hole 9 were kind of grouped together in the corner of the lab. And when they provided us 233 and down, Terry called and said, well, where's the rest of those? And they found the rest of 9 together with 10 and they'd kind of been put aside. So he asked that they be put next in line, and they should have been done already, but they're not. It is what it is, but I would expect that to happen really quickly.
Well, talk to me maybe a little bit about why you did a partial hole. I mean, is that because of the assays, or it's typically something that I don't like seeing unless there's a strong explanation for it. So that's really what I'm looking for here. Why would you release only part of that hole instead of waiting for the whole thing?
Because we got the assay results and we felt that were material.
Okay, fair.
Nothing else to say. They're material for more than one reason. I keep alluding to the fact that maybe this isn't just an epithermal system. We didn't cut through a narrow, high-grade epithermal system with that. Those holes were 580 meters deep, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that they're material in more than one way, that they kind of show some different style mineralization in the area. And we felt that when we find something like that out, it has to go to the market.
Yeah. Also, so it's the first 238 meters that you didn't release. Does that start in? Is there an overburden on that hole?
No.
Okay. So it's going to be 238 meters of data. It's not like it's going to be 200 meters of barren rock, essentially.
Well, we don't have the assays, so we don't know. I mean, and keeping in mind that hole 10 was drilled from the same pad. We flipped the rig around 180 degrees. I mentioned before that we're encouraged by the look of the core in both 9 and 10. So let's get that out there. But building tons, if we're fortunate enough that hole 10 and hole 9 are like we hope, then the potential of building real big tonnage at Arco could be very real and very quick. Because if you recall, because we flipped the rig around, there's many hundreds of meters in between those two holes at depth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You did talk a little bit about the artisanals working on this target, right? So on the Arco Northwest target, what's the status there? Like, is there legal status? What does that even look like on the ground?
Oh, we're talking about the 40s and 50s, and like a long time ago, where they just went down 1 or 2 or 3 meters, took rock out, and sent it for processing to Anami.
But there's nobody there now?
Correct.
Oh, okay. What is the permitting state actually? Like, how far are you permitted right now? What can you do under the current paperwork?
The way it works there is you submit your pads for approval. You can drill up to 4 holes on any one pad. So that application is going in to expand both Cerro Blanco and Arco and Caballo Muerto right now. And we anticipate that we will be going full bore again by about the 15th or so of April.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot to mention that when you submit it, they have 30 days to respond with objections. It's been our experience that they never object. But once the 30 days goes ahead, or expires, I'm sorry, you can go ahead and drill. Our experience in the past has been that we get the approvals before the 30 days. So it's the government organization, Sunacuman, mining regulator in Chile.
Yeah. And then in terms of locals or anybody else that you have to consult, what does that look like?
Well, we're fortunate there. We're 15 kilometers from El Salvador. That's a town. We're also about 15 to 20 kilometers from Diego de Almagro. Both of those are mining towns, and more so El Salvador because it was built to support the El Salvador mine. That's still in operation. I can't remember the year it went in, but it was something like 75 years ago. So it's a big employer. Codelco has to make sure, at least in my humble opinion, I'm not here to tell Codelco what they should do, but make sure that the operation there of the El Salvador mine and the smelter, the Porteria smelter that is supporting that mine, stay in operation and that the people of El Salvador are gainfully employed. It's not a secret that the government has made that clear, and so I'm not telling them what to do, but we find ourselves in a very interesting position because we're so close and the town is there and they're mining towns. I think what you were trying to ask is, do we have like indigenous people
Mhm.
or certain landowners that we have to um, I don't know, appease, I guess would be the word. The answer there is no. Now, do we have to consult and make sure we keep everybody happy? Yes. Are people happy that exploration is going on in that area? Absolutely. You saw the landscape that Tom showed earlier. It's kind of the south end of the Atacama Desert. That's a bit of a stretch, but it's certainly in that region. But when you sit or when you stand on the top of the hills and you can look for miles at just desert landscape, sometimes you think, boy, maybe I'm standing on Mars, like that movie they shot with whatever his name was again. And yeah, it's remarkable scenery though. It's very beautiful. To answer your question, we don't have consultation problems there.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, good. It's stuff like that. Tom mentioned super dry as well. What about water? What's the water situation been? Has there been any more discussion around water since the last time you and I spoke?
There is some discussions going on, but I prefer not to go into that on this video, if that's okay.
Hmm.
They're a little confidential in nature, and yeah. So, I mean, the Codelco El Salvador mine is serviced by a 24-inch pipeline that runs just a couple miles away from the property. Now, that will require discussion, and if someone was to dream, they'd say, well, maybe this helps the overall El Salvador community and mining and Porteria smelter and everything. And so, of course, they're going to want to have everything in operation, keeping in mind that, with a few exceptions like agriculture and wine and stuff like that in the south, the northern regions of Chile depend very heavily on mining, as we all know.
Hmm. Yeah. You did talk about hiring more people, which I assume is kind of hiring what geological power. Like, who do you need specifically? Is something going to change at the corporate level? What do you think there?
Well, first, let's address Chile. We need geological power,
Hmm.
field people, and um, people that could help Terry in his endeavors to get both additional exploration going and also resource delineation. It's a big job, so we're cognizant of it and are in discussions on that. As far as Calgary goes, Canada goes, well, we do need some help there, and as we're moving forward, I've been very clear that I think that at the end of this year or somewhere around there, don't be surprised if a very high um, profile, shall we say, or a capital market savvy and mining experienced person doesn't come along and take over my role there. I have no intention of leaving. I would stay on the board and really enjoy what's going on there. But this is going to take a lot of work, like a lot of, face-to-face meetings and all of the above. And whilst I enjoy it, um, I don't think there's anything wrong with me saying it's probably better handled by someone a bit younger than I am.
Is that something for 2026? Is it going to happen this year?
I think so.
Hmm. Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
no big push on it during the month of March, but in the September onwards quarter, 5 months, whatever period of time, I think that a lot of that kind of thinking will happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want anybody to get the wrong impression. I love it. It's fascinating, and it's not that. I just want to do the best for shareholders, and I think what that is to get, guys that are ready to travel the world, tell the story, you know, lower our cost of capital, all those kind of things, and someone very high profile would help that. Now, let's keep in mind one more interesting thing. It's the chicken and the egg thing, of course, that in order to get someone like that, you've got to really have an interesting project. And I think people are coming around to seeing that the resource potential here is maybe a lot higher than what they thought. I feel that way. But Terry feels that way. I think it's safe to say that Tom, who was just on, and an analyst, Patrick Streaker, who was with us on our last trip, he's with Argonaut. I think they all feel that way as well. Keeping in mind, of course, that we're not forward looking and doing anything like that. We just have our kind of thoughts, and you look up at the hill and you kind of look at a cross section sitting at you right there at Cerro Blanco, and you say, yeah, there's something here. So to finish the thought, the more robust the system is, or the play and the property, the more it'll be easy to attract someone really stellar for the role. And so that is a bit of an iterative process, but it's ongoing. And I look forward, for the sake of all shareholders, for something like that to happen, and the whole world knows about the San Lorenzo story.
I'm going to point out, I did write down needs help in Calgary, and I'm going to have to agree with that, because I think the Flames are like, the only reason they're not last in the conference is because the Canucks exist. Otherwise you guys would be last. But it's that's maybe a podcast in and of itself. I do want to close the circle here with what I asked Tom at the beginning. And we talked about that Argonaut report multiple times, but it was about the valuations, right? Which I understand the biases of that report, but it is essentially used to market the stock. And so it's important for me to understand the expectations that are being created versus what you expect as a company. But so in that report, they have an $8 price target, and it's built on, in large part, on Caballo Muerte and Arco de Oro, not so much on Cerro Blanco. Cerro Blanco is valued at, I believe, only at about 3% of the expected in-ground in situ value. So does that reflect your internal view of Cerro Blanco's timeline and everything that's going on, and just in general your view on valuation?
I think Cerro Blanco is a home run in the making. We're just getting up to bat. So do I think it's going to be a very, very valuable contributor to the overall number of ounces and value? I absolutely do. I also believe that Arco de Oro will find itself in that position as well. I find it difficult for myself to prognosticate on, numbers of millions of ounces, especially earlier in the system or earlier in the program. But Tom touched on it, but every time we drill here, and I will say that IP is working here. So I'm fully cognizant that it doesn't work everywhere, and presumably it's not going to work in certain areas here too. But having a tool like that seems to work, and we've got so many anomalies that we haven't drilled, it bodes well for real significant resource being established at Salvadora. So you asked the question, what's my view? And I think you were trying to pin me down on numbers of ounces, or whether this is going to be one target, two targets, or three, and what the copper component ultimately could be. It's not in my wheelhouse to be able to do that. So I respectfully will just pass on kind of giving you my prediction. Maybe what we need to do is get Terry Walker on one of these, the real quarterback of all this, by the way. So let's give him full kudos. and get him to kind of. The only trouble with doing that is your podcast will be 6 hours long because once you start him, he just wants to talk about rocks and oh look at this and oh you wouldn't believe it and then the big smile comes across his face and but he loves what he does, right? But I do want to give a big shout out to him to be the finder, no doubt about it. So yeah, I don't know that I answered your question, but I skated around it a little bit, but I think I answered it as much as maybe I can or want to at this point.
It's one of those questions where you could never give a direct number. I would hope you wouldn't give a direct number, actually. And it's more important to me to see how you think about it and how you answer the question than the actual answer itself. We've been at it for a while. I understand you must be getting tired of me at this point, so I will work toward wrapping it up. A bit of housekeeping here. G&A, what do you think is going to happen to your G&A? Hiring new people, potentially hiring a CEO. Where do you foresee the G&A being here over the next couple of months?
G&A is definitely going to increase. I don't see the CEO coming on in the next couple of months, but I do see some exploration staff in Chile as well as field guys. Interesting about the field guys, typically that gets capitalized, so it doesn't show up in G&A reporting.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't capitalize anything in Calgary. We don't have essentially salaries in Calgary. It's more of a labor of love, but lest anyone feel sorry for us, we have a material equity position. So, and that's kind of, I don't know, our modus operandi, shall we say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's going to go up, and so are the number of people, and so are the eyes on the story. So we have no choice but to get a number of additions into the story. I wouldn't want anybody to think that they're going to get out of control because we don't operate that way. We've demonstrated it in the past, and we'll stick with our knitting there. I'm hesitant to give you a number right now, but yes, it's imminent that other people are coming to help.
Yeah. Just trying to get a better idea of what's going to be taking money out of your pocket outside of drilling and everything. Adding more land. Do you think you might need more land? Again, you just added some. Do you need more?
Not really. Mirasol's acreage was important to us. You don't really read it in a news release. I mean, for crying out loud, we kept it to just a little old 9-page release, So we haven't added any interpretation yet of our own interpretation, I guess, of the Mirasol lands. But it doesn't, I guess, take a rocket scientist to figure out that it probably these trends go down onto their lands. And I wouldn't accuse Mirasol of saying that they don't probably see that as well, but they're very focused on 2 or 3 other targets that they're working on. And probably would say if they were on this video to say, yeah, it's not a bad idea to put it into the San Lorenzo people's hands, let them try and find something, hopefully. I mean, clearly that's the way we talk. Let's make sure that this works for both of us. But it was important to us, 2 kilometers of north-south strike land extension just wasn't enough for this feature. Just the lithocap took about 2/3 of that. So now that we've got 6 kilometers of north-south land exposure, we have a lot more running room at Cerro Blanco. Cerro Blanco is going to be something spectacular, in my opinion. So maybe I'm answering your earlier question a little later, but boy, there's a lot going on there.
Mm.
There's a lot going on at Arco de Oro as well.
A lot of work, a lot of moving particles are indeed happening. When do you think would be a good time for you and I to do an update? Maybe sometime this summer again, March 24 now, end of the 3rd month, end of the 1st quarter. When do you think we should do an update?
Well, that's a good question. Let us get 2 or 3 weeks going where we've got lots of information out there and really bring people up to speed that we're making huge progress. That's what we gotta do. That's what we promised.
Hmm.
And I guess you're nothing if you don't live up to your promises. So we are going to try our best.
Yeah. Good. Well, it has been a pleasure. It has been a good update. What's been the most fair criticism that you've received of San Lorenzo over the last 6 months since you and I have spoken?
Well, the quality of our presentation materials, that's underway about improving. And the real criticism is that the overall management team needs to be uh, improved. It has to be bulked up, shall we say, plus the quality of what we put out has to improve. And they're fair criticisms, by the way. They're just bang on, but we're working to fix that. Um, they do say in the resource business, I think everybody knows that my background is more oil and gas than mining, but that it doesn't matter. Many people would say, well, just find it. And if you find it, the rest of it will work out. It'll work itself out. Now, maybe that's not if you find it on the North Pole and the infrastructure is impossible. That is the one maybe exception, or really deep or things like that. There are a few things you would say, well, yeah, just find it, and find it in a bad place doesn't help you. I would submit to you that we found it, number one, and we found it in an excellent place. Like, we're only 25 kilometers from a smelter. We're 15 kilometers from a mining town and from another mine that, whilst it's not technically at end of life, the grades are progressively lower. Now, admittedly, copper prices are helping all that, but to have a fresh source in the area will be just a beautiful thing. Paved roads and power there already, and so I'd submit to you that my comment about find it and the rest of it will take care of itself is kind of true in this position, or in this situation where we found it in the right place. And that's a blessed thing indeed.
Build it and they'll come. That's kind of what it goes back to, maybe. You mentioned something there, Al, that I should have asked you this last time. I think I might have, and if I didn't, I should have. Um, uh, Coming from oil and gas, getting into the junior mining business, what have you found to be different? And over these last couple of months, as the markets have been going up quite aggressively, what are kind of the differences that you're noticing between an energy bull market and a junior mining bull market?
Well, putting aside the oil and gas price increase because of Iran, I would say that I don't know that anybody has ever seen a resource bull market caused by such a run up in commodities as the gold, silver, copper space has enjoyed over the last couple of years. So I'm not sure that it's ever been enjoyed to that degree in the oil and gas business. To be clear, there have been some really nice times, but perhaps nothing quite like we're seeing right now. I think you made a comment earlier, maybe we were off camera, that, well, maybe we're not in a bull market. I don't buy that. I see that, there's corrections in commodities, and those are healthy things in any market. So there's fundamental shifts. There's fundamental shifts in the way people are thinking, and the risks to fiat currencies, and then you talk about copper and its supply problems. And I will be the first to admit that I don't quite get the silver side of it, but okay. But when it comes to the gold, and maybe not everybody thinks that crypto is the magic elixir anymore when you throw AI at it and it solves what those algorithms are, maybe and maybe not. I'm speaking out of school because I'm not well educated in it, but I do see the spending of the governments and the fiat currency debasing, and what was it? I can't remember the fellow that said, "Well, Mr. Trump, maybe we should put some gold into Fort Knox before we do an audit of it." I'm not suggesting anything other than, yeah, maybe some of this paper gold, needs to be replaced. And so I don't see us having a huge problem in the gold space. Now, corrections, of course, there's going to be, but look at the windfall profits that are being made by producers right now. My goodness. And as far as the copper space, it's difficult to see where the demand side being so robust and the difficulty really in meeting that demand where we're going to have a big problem with copper either. So you're asking me to compare oil and gas to minerals. I mean, clearly they're different ways to tackle them, but really they are the same thing, And once you get it in your blood, there's a lot of people that'll listen to this and they have it in their blood and they'll understand what I mean. When you are fortunate enough to be part of companies that I guess poke holes into Mother Earth to see what she has, it's a wonderful thing. It's you got to be an explorationist at heart. I'm not a geologist, so I'm not like the geologists that it's right there all the time. I'm a little skeptical as well, but it's a wonderful thing to be able to be involved in.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a very good note to end it on. I asked you about criticisms on San Lorenzo, so it's only fair to ask you, but what's your most fair criticism of me? What did you come here hoping to talk about that I failed to bring up?
Well, you didn't play your guitar behind you and show us how good you are at it.
I'm not very good. I've only been playing it for, I think maybe about a year and a half now, maybe even 2 years actually. So it should be better. But I've mostly been playing classical rock and country. So that might be a good idea for another podcast in and of itself.
It looks to me, actually, you've got two hobbies going on there, and the other is painting. So I wish you really good success in both of those.
I wish I'd painted this. I didn't. I actually bought it at a flea market. But no, it's guitar and hockey. That would probably be my two hobbies. You don't see my skates, but they're actually right behind me.
You don't have them on, do you?
No, I don't. That'd be funny. Good, Al. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for doing this. I'm already looking forward to our next conversation.
As am I, and I thank you very much.
And as always, thanks to everyone for watching Resource Talks. I have a couple of more things to say, though. The fact that this company was interviewed here today does not mean that they're necessarily a good or a bad company. I'm not here to endorse nor attack anyone. I am simply here to ask some questions. If you find that I have failed in asking a question that you would have liked to hear an answer to, which will happen as I'm not an experienced interviewer, please let me know and I will try to correct that mistake in a future interview. As mentioned at the beginning, please understand that mineral exploration and development is an extremely risky business. Losing money is the norm and should be the expectation. This is a very complex sector, and the performance of individual companies typically depends on many different moving particles, including company-specific factors like geology, financing ability, and many others, really, as well as particles that are outside of the company's control, like geopolitics, macroeconomics, commodity prices, and many more, most of which are nearly impossible to fully understand. Moreover, these companies that typically get interviewed on Resource Talks are in the pre-revenue stage, which means they rely on the public markets for the financing of their operations, which could result in shareholder dilution. Furthermore, as a general rule of thumb, you'll be better off understanding that all company communications online, albeit this interview or their website and their presentation and their social media accounts, or even the social media accounts which you thought were your friends and then told you about a stock, everything really that these companies do is intended as marketing. And although I do not make buy or sell recommendations because there is a clear conflict of interest given the nature of my business, many out there do. And you should be aware of that inherent bias and you should be careful out there. That bias is not always going to be clearly disclosed with everyone out there. So it is safer for you anytime you're watching any type of company specific content to approach it with a dose of skepticism and assume that the party telling you about it is biased in at least some shape or form, because there will always be a bias, again, albeit clear or not. So always ask yourself what the incentive of your counterparty is and never rely on them regardless of their incentives, but instead double check if what they're saying is true, again, by using setterplus.ca. The fact that I have no idea what I'm doing should already be clear to you at this point. I am not saying this to make jokes or laugh with myself. I just simply do not have a long enough track record of consistent investment profits. So I should under no circumstances be considered an authority on anything. Again, although this may sound amusing to you, believe me, it is not amusing and it is not intended as a joke. I'm simply pointing out a fact and warning you not to rely on anything I do or say. Unfortunately, at least to my understanding, nobody out there has any special abilities. The CEOs do not possess any superior knowledge, and they cannot know about what will go up, what will go down, or what will go in circles. Some people even believe that to be rule number one on Wall Street. Nobody really knows. None of us know whether any of the company's activities will result in a success, again, given that we're talking about high-risk activities where most of the times it ends in failure. So unfortunately, try as I may, I won't always catch all red flags or all challenges with the companies. So even if I did ask a few tough questions in here, don't rely on this being all of the tough questions. Again, these are complicated startups with many moving parts, and I am conflicted given the nature of this business. Therefore, I cannot guarantee the quality of anything presented in this video, and you cannot hold me responsible for any losses or damages stemming from the way you decide to use this interview. Viewers, listeners, and readers acknowledge and agree that the information presented herein did not constitute a solicitation or an offer to buy or sell any security or investment or to participate in any trading strategy. Resource Talks and all parties involved in the management of the business strictly disclaim any and all liability for losses and or damages, whether direct, indirect, special, or consequential, or other consequences, however so caused, arising out of any use or reproduction of the content published by Resource Talks, or any decision made or action taken in reliance upon it. By consuming this content, all consumers vow to release Resource Talks and all parties involved in the management of the business from all claims, proceedings, or consequences. This is all to say, I know it's a lot of lawyer talk, but this is all to say that you shouldn't blindly trust me or anybody on the internet, and you should do your own research. Once again, social media is meant for entertainment. It is setterplus.ca where you do your research. That's where you'll find the company's official filings, and I encourage you to read and analyze the Management Information Circular, the financial statements, the Management Discussion and Analysis, and whenever available, the NI 43-101 technical documents. If you don't understand everything in those documents, the chances of you losing money are even higher than they normally are in this space. And as mentioned earlier, the chances of even the best analysts in this sector losing money are extremely high, since this is venture capital and it is not for everybody. I'll leave you with one of Charlie Munger's quotes, which I wish I had listened to more often earlier on, which says, quote, "If you don't understand it, don't do it."